We're going to start off this talk with a brief reminder of who the character of Lugh, pronounced like an L-U sound but spelt L-U-G-H, is in Irish mythology, and discuss his continental Celtic roots, because we believe that it possibly is the god Lugh that lends his name to the festival of Lughnasadh. In Irish mythology, Lugh is best attested to in the tale Cath Mai Tura, or the Second Battle of Moytura, a story found in a 16th century manuscript but containing material that may date back to the 9th century. The Moytura triad is one of the richest sources we have containing details about characters that may be depictions of old Irish gods. The story goes that as a young man, Lugh travels to Tara to join the court of King Nuada of the Tuatha De Danann. The doorkeeper will not let him in unless he has a unique skill with which to serve the king. He offers his services as a wright, a smith, a swordsman, a champion, a hero, a harpist, a poet, historian, sorcerer, and craftsman. But each time he is rejected, as the Tuatha De Danann already have someone with that skill. But when Lugh asks if they have anyone with all those skills put together, the doorkeeper admits defeat. Lugh joins the court and is appointed Chief Ullave of Ireland, Ullave being an Old Irish term for the highest rank in a respective group. The Tuatha De Danann are at this time oppressed by the Fomorians, and Lugh is amazed that they accept this. King Nuada wonders if Lugh could be the one to free them. Lugh is given command over the Tuatha De Danann, and he begins making preparations for war against the Fomorians. On the battlefield, Lugh faces Balor, his grandfather, king of the Fomorians, who opens his terrible poisonous eye that kills all it looks upon. But Lugh shoots a stone from a slingshot that drives Balor's eye out the back of his head, wreaking havoc on the Fomorian army behind him. Lugh then is granted the secrets of agriculture from the Fomorians. Later, Lugh of course fathers the hero Cuchulainn with a mortal woman and was killed after serving 40 years as a ruler. This story contains a harvest myth hidden in plain sight, in which the secrets of agricultural prosperity are discovered from a reluctant god by Lugh. This is an excellent tale. But Lugh is not exclusively ours. There is evidence for a deity sharing the name in Wales and on the continent amongst Celtic tribes. His Welsh counterpart has a name meaning the bright one with the strong hand. This translation is interesting because it shares aspects of Lugh that we see here in Ireland and on mainland Europe. In Ireland, Lugh was also known by the epithet Lá Fada, meaning long arm or long hand, possibly for his skill with a spear or sling, as well as the root of his name being contested to possibly be derived from the Proto-Indo-European word luek, L-E-U-K, to shine. On the continent, Lugh is known as Lugus, L-U-G-U-S, and he was there first. He came to Ireland later. It appears the knowledge of this god Lugus spread west, taking hold in Wales and then Ireland. Evidence for Lugus on the continent exists in inscriptions and on stone art. There are quite a few inscriptions in stone in Spain and France, being Old Gaul, but particularly the Iberian Peninsula. These petition Lugus and dedicate places to him. He also exists in many place names in Spain, France and England, including of course County Louth here in Ireland. Julius Caesar, in his study of the Celts, said that the Gauls who inhabited the area around France had 6 favourite gods. The problem is that Caesar gave them all their Roman equivalent names instead of their native ones, so he said that Mercury was the god most revered in Gaul, describing him as a patron of trade and commerce, protector of travellers, and the inventor of all the arts. The Irish god Lugh bore the name Samhail Donach, skilled in all arts, which has led to the widespread identification of Caesar's Mercury as Lugus. In Gaul and Wales, he is also associated with shoemakers. The Gaulish Mercury is often depicted as having either 3 faces or 3 phalluses. In France, his sacred sites were high places, hills and mountains. We will see in a moment that the Irish also visited high hills during their Lughnasadh festivities all the way up to the 20th century. The festival itself. In Roman Gaul, a festival called Lughnasadh in honour of Emperor Augustus was celebrated on the 1st of August. French academics believe it may have been instigated on top of an existing Gaulish festival in honour of the god Lugus. Consulting an old text, Agil of Lughnasadh, we find out that Lughnasadh appears to have an older name here in Ireland, possibly Bron Trogon. A verse attributed to the hero Fionn speaks of a feast made for him every year on this day. In Tógmarc Emera le Cuchulainn, passage 27, the quarterly festivals are named, accrediting Bron Trogon with the beginning of winter. The name may mean in English something similar to that the earth sorrows under its fruits. Here in Ireland, the Festival of Lughnasadh is one of the 4 main historic Irish festivals celebrated throughout the year, with Samhain on October 31st, Imbolc or Brigid's Day on the 1st of February, and Bealtaine, May Day, meaning bright fire, on May the 1st. These festivals, along with Lughnasadh, have older names given in the text Tógmarc Emera le Cuchulainn. However, we don't have massive amounts of information in the early sources about the festival of Lughnasadh itself. Samhain and Bealtaine appear to be much more important. We have evidence from the metrical Dinshenicus, a medieval Irish manuscript associated with place name lore, that harvest celebrations were instigated here by Lu himself. Hence the title of the celebration is made up of his own name, Lu, with the ending Nasad, N-A-F-A-D, meaning games or an assembly. The account reads, 3370 BC. It was in the reign of this Lu that the fair of Tailteann was established in commemoration and remembrance of his foster mother Talcha, the daughter of Mai Mór, king of Spain, and the wife of Éacha, son of Erc, the last king of the Firbolg. In the metrical Dinshenicus, this fair is recorded as continuing on and off until 1168. Another account, Seanas Cormac from the 9th century, states Lughnasadh, the Nasad, again meaning games or assembly, of Lu, son of Ethla, an assembly held by him at the beginning of harvest each year at the coming of Lughnasadh. We know of one other contemporary fair held at Lughnasadh time. There's a poem from the 11th century that describes a fair called Carman, C-A-R-M-A-N, in County Wexford, held in remembrance of the death of a warrior woman from Athens who challenged the Tuatha De Danann and lost. The place she was buried was called after her, and Tuatha De Danann instigated an Oignach, or fair, in her honour. I'm going to read some of the verses of this poem so you'll have an idea of what happened at such a Lughnasadh Oignach. Starting from verse 53. On the Calends of August, free from reproach, they would go hither every 3rd year. They would hold 7 races for a glorious object, 7 days in the week. There they would discuss with strife of speech the dues and tributes of the province. Every legal enactment, right, piously. Every 3rd year it was settled. Corn, milk, peace, happy ease, full nets, oceans plenty. Grey-bearded men, chieftains in amity, with troops overbearing Erin. Suing, harsh levying of debts, satiring, quarrelling, misconduct is not dared during the races. No men go into an assembly of women, no women into an assembly of fair, pure men. As for elopement, it is not to be heard of there, neither a second husband nor a second family. These are the fair's great privileges: trumpets, harps, hollow-throated horns, pipers, timpanists unwearied, poets and meek musicians. Tales of Finn and the Fina, a matter inexhaustible, sacks, forays, wooings, tablets and books of lore, satire, keen riddles. Pipes, fiddles, gleemen, bone players and bagpipers, a crowd hideous, noisy, shriekers and shouters. They exert all their efforts, for the king of seething Berba, the king noble and honoured, pays for each art its proper honour. Tales of death and slaughter, strains of music, exact synchronizing of the goodly race, his royal pedigree, a blessing through Braig Mag, his battle and his stark valour. That is the sign for the breaking up of the fair by the fortunate, ever-joyous host. May there be given to them, from the Lord, the earth with her pleasant fruits. the first harvest. Here in Ireland, the last weekend in July was the time you wanted your first crops ready for harvesting. It was considered improper to dig up any corn or potatoes before this, but usually your oats and potatoes you would hope would be ready by this date. The newly gathered crop made up the bulk of your meal at the end of the harvest. July was commonly known as a hard month with little food left, so the first harvest meal on Lughnasadh Eve was greatly awaited. In Falcara in northern Donegal, it was said by the old people to their families while cooking potatoes at the end of the summer, "Go easy on them, it's long to Lughnasadh Day." Seasonal fruit like gooseberries, currants, whortleberries, strawberries and raspberries were mashed up with cream and sugar for dessert. This festive meal made up only half of the celebration. The rest was carried on outside. The favourite spots for Lughnasadh outings were high hills, mountains, or sometimes by water. Sometimes old sites would be preferred. Large crowds from the surrounding area would gather and make the trek to the desired location, where there would be games by the younger folk, eating, playing of music and dancing. The girls picked the wildflowers and made crowns, while the boys played games testing their skill and strength. This is a quick synopsis of the common events of the Lughnasadh festivities at the start of the harvest. We're going to read through some first-hand accounts now from Irish folklore archives about these harvest celebrations. What I will say beforehand is that the date of Lughnasadh appears to be fluid here in Ireland. It was either celebrated on the last Sunday of July or the first Sunday of August, not necessarily on the 1st of August. Also, you will see that it has varying names that we will look into more later on. It also has characters other than Lugh associated with it, the main one being a character called Crom Dubh. An account from Inishowen by James O'Donnell, 1940. One of the old customs of Inishowen consisted in all or nearly all of the grown-up boys and girls of the surrounding 6 parishes meeting on Heatherberry Sunday at the spring well called Siúla Tuver, near the top of Slieve Snacht. Met ostensibly for the purpose of gathering berries, the boys and girls, when they came together on the mountain, turned the event into a social occasion. They danced, frolicked, sported, and generally enjoyed themselves. As a sequel to these chance meetings and mountaintop flirtations, many weddings resulted. An account from the locality of Knockfarina, County Limerick, 1930. The young people of the locality gathered for the celebration on the top level of the ridge of Knockfarina, which is a hill, to the west of the conspicuous hump which forms the summit, and here they played games, flirted, danced and sang, ate and drank the dainties they had brought with them. They picked freacon, whortleberries and flowers, some of which they laid on the small cairn called the Striceen at the summit, which covered the reputed entrance to Don Fernia's underground palace. In the evening a great bonfire was lit near the Striceen. This account is particularly interesting because we see the locals leaving offerings to Don, the old Irish god of death, at this prehistoric mountaintop cairn. All of this happening in the 1930s. From the Laois Offaly border by Helen Rowe from the folklore journal Bailogis. On the last Sunday in July, the people of Mount Rath, Trumera and the surrounding districts go up on the Slieve Bloom Mountains onto the slopes of Ard Erin. They bring with them food and spend the day on the mountain. There are all kinds of games and trials of strength, and in the evening they kindle big fires, and the young men run around these fires. The more daring of them leap over the fires. In this district, this Sunday is called Height Sunday. An account from Slieve Callan, County Clare by Brian O'Looney, 1940s. This is an example, as you will see, of how traditional harvest festivities began to be dissuaded by the church. On this day, all went to Bual na Gráine with their contributions and their loans, Irish for lunch, to hold the fair. The ceremonies consisted of strewing summer flowers on the altar and festive mound under the name of Altor na Gráine, altar of the sun, but which is on this day used as the altar of Crom Dubh. The assemblage of this day is called Crimho Crom Dubh, or the congregation or gathering of Crom Dubh, and the day is called from him Downach Crom Dubh, or Crom Dove's Sunday, now called Garland Sunday by the English-speaking portion of the people in the surrounding districts. This name is supposed to have been derived from the practice of strewing garlands of flowers on the festive mound on this day as homage to Crom Dubh, hence the name Garland Sunday. Assuredly, I saw blossoms and flowers deposited upon it on the first Sunday of August, 1844, and put some upon it myself, as I saw done by those who were with me. I was then a mere lad, but very inquisitive. The assembly was at this time a mere gathering of boys. If you ask me who Crom Dubh was, I can only tell you I asked the question myself on the spot. I was told that Crom was a god, and that Dubh or Dua meant a sacrifice, which in combination made Crom Dubh or Crom Dua, that is, Crom's sacrifice, and this Sunday was set apart for the feast and commemoration of this Crom Dubh, whoever he may have been. The feast, games and sports of this day merged into a sort of patron or festive fair, which continued to be celebrated on Lughnasadh for a considerable time. The principal amusements were feasting, drinking, singing, racing, hurling, dancing, and other such sports, the patron being sometimes held for several days. The priests and wise men of the surrounding parishes, growing tired of this practice, admonished the people to abandon the custom of going to Mount Callan, and counselled them to give up the customary feasts and patron of Lughnasadh. And subsequently they got up a patron of St. Muchans in the Union of Ennistimon, whither they invited all to come. Here they set up races, goals, money, dances, and other sports to attract people hither. And here, while the young and sportive were at their sports, the old and pious were engaged in performing rounds at St. Muchan's holy well, and praying on the bed of the holy saint. This patron put an end to the meetings on Lughnasadh. There appear to be many cases like this, where festivities assumed a religious character as the church tried to tame the natives. The most famous example is the climb up Croagh Patrick in County Mayo, which, according to some Irish historians, has been associated with Crom Dubh. It was claimed by the church in the 15th century. Now the last Sunday in July there is known as Reek Sunday, where Christians climb the hill as a penance. So the date is traditional, but the meaning may have changed. An account from George Petrie, 1808. On Church Mountain, the people still continue the ancient pagan festival of, so called by the people, Saint Lammas. 'Tis thus named from the cairn on top of it, which the people think must be a ruined church. On the centre of the cairn still remains the pagan altar. Until the rebellion, the priest annually read prayers on Saint Lammas Day. On this day, several hundreds do penance by going from the bottom to the top on their knees. There is also, beside the cairn, a spring well renowned for its medicinal values. There are 78 accounts of these sorts of celebrations on the tops of hills, the majority of them being found in Ulster. There are 13 more accounts of celebrations held by water, mainly in County Meath. There is the same dancing, singing, feasting, and picking of fruit, but here cattle and horses were driven into the water. There's an account from 1680 that says, "On the first Sunday in harvest they will be sure to drive their cattle into some pool or river, and therein swim there. This they may observe as inviolable as if it were a point of religion, for they think no beast will live the whole year through unless they be thus drenched. In the healthful flood to plunge the bleating flock, but precisely to do this on the first Sunday in the harvest, I look upon as not only superstitious, but profane." From Micheál O'Brien, Irish Folklore Commission, 1942. People came to the well, which was near the top of a hill, from places 6 miles distant, and they all walked. From 2 p.m. they began to arrive in small groups, 2s, 3s, and so on, up to 40 or 50. Mostly young people, but many old people made the journey also, but it was regarded as a young people's outing. Girls wore new blouses on that day, and young men tried to have a new suit of clothes for the occasion. When people arrived, they made a station at the well, and the men indulged then in weight throwing and long and high jumps. The excitement was intense, sometimes deteriorating into fisticuffs. Singing and dancing were carried out on the road nearby, and Con the fiddler was sure to be there. The rushes growing out and in the well were knotted when the station was finished. Courtship was a feature, and on the way home little groups danced at crossroads and sometimes in a house, if the old people there were kind and considerate. And if a young pair were suspected of having a notion of marrying, the woman of the house managed to provide an opportunity for them to have a chat in secret. But it was generally an open secret. Standings of gooseberries, cakes, sweets, etc. attended there. People plucked bilberries on their way home. No one took food to the place, as very few people attending had no friend in the locality, and you could drop into almost any house and your visit would be understood. You would be treated with refreshments right away. From 4 or 5 hours were spent in the neighbourhood of the well. Up until about 1900, the above state of affairs continued in full force, but began to wane, and about 1915, the athletes' music and standings disappeared, and people simply sat around the place and made a station. At present, no more than 30 people visit the place. From an Ordnance Survey letter from County Mayo, the author T. O'Connor writes, "At this loch Kieran near Bohola, Mayo, which is a small pool in the bog, there is usually a patron on the Sunday commonly called Garlic Sunday, but recite Garland Sunday, a name assumed from the circumstance of Ceres, the goddess of corn, being worshipped on that day, on which garlands made of the stalks of corn with the ears on were, it said, worn in her honour. This Sunday in Irish is called Downach Crom Dove, or Crom Dove's Sunday. The people, it is said, swim their horses in the lake on that day to defend them against incidental evils during the year. They are also accustomed to throw butter into it, with the intention that their cows may be sufficiently productive of milk and butter during the year. There was formerly a tree at this place, around which the people were in the habit of fastening by a noose cords that were used in tying up cows. The Roman Catholic Church bishop of the diocese in which the parish, containing an old church and loch, is situated, got the tree cut down in order to prevent the people from getting on with such ceremonies. At Loch Gur, in harvest time, the largest pillar stone of the stone circle, called Rannoch Crom Dove, was decked out with garlands of flowers. The Reverend of the parish of East Limerick said in 1897, "The old people of this parish of Caherconlish call the first Sunday in August Crom Dove Sunday." We have seen quite a few entries that attribute the last weekend in July to the first weekend in August, Crom Dove Sunday. Crom Dove, meaning dark bent one, was an old pagan chief who apparently opposed Christianity, and St. Patrick himself even, if he did exist. A number of fairs, heralding back to the initial medieval tradition, are held around Lughnasadh time, most famously the Puck Fair in Kerry. Divination to foretell the future was also carried out at this time of year, mainly about weather forecasting. A newspaper from 1943 in Cavan reads, "The old residents say that there is no danger of a Lammas flood this year, as such occurs only when there is flooding in May." We see from our sources that Lughnasadh customs did not remain exclusive to the 1st of August. The date of the festival appears to have been fluid, but was ultimately connected to the ripening of the first harvest. Our other quarterly festivals are always celebrated in folklore on the 1st by the Julian calendar. But it's hypothesized that these dates are fixed because these festivals mainly happen in or around the home, while Lughnasadh appears to involve the entire community and parish groups on a scale greater than the other festivals. And so it needed to be celebrated on a day of leisure, at a weekend. It seems that our harvest festivals were held either on the last Sunday of July or on the first Sunday of August. In some areas, the festival remained pagan for long spans of time. In others, the church took over or banned these festivities early on, so some accounts are more Christianized than others throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. The harvest celebrations did not always retain the name Lughnasadh here in Ireland. In fact, it's rare we find a folklore account stating Lughnasadh as their festival's name. We have seen the festival going by a great many other names. From medieval times, we have the name Brone Trogon. We later then have Crom Dove Sunday. Lammas Sunday coming from the Anglo-Saxons, and Garland Sunday for the festival's association with flowers possibly. These appeared the most popular alternative names. What we do see, though, is a commonality in the customs, the activities carried out at this time of year, which in turn tie back with our medieval Irish sources and what was happening then. And most likely, they are representative of activities carried out at this time of year, whose origins may go back into Irish prehistory.